Just me, a place to be me, where you get to experience life. 'Cause life is a journey, not a guided tour. If you want the rainbow, you have to go through the rain.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we have another amazing guest who's going to continue to have this important conversation around mental health and spirituality. This professional's name is Miss Kimberly Lilly, and Miss Lilly is a licensed professional counselor who has been working in the mental health and wellness field for 19 years. Additionally, Miss Lilly is in a unique position of bridging the gap between faith, spirituality, and mental wellness. So let's dive right in and gain some more perspective. Miss
Okay,
Lilly?
thank you. So my name is Kim and my last name is Lilly. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I'm also a licensed and ordained minister. I have been counseling since 2003. I have done a lot of work in various places, settings. I've worked as a school counselor. I've worked in inpatient hospitalization on the adult unit, on the child adolescent unit. I have gone into homes to provide therapy, worked with premarital and marital counseling. I really have done a little bit of everything. I've worked in the emergency rooms and provided crisis counseling, worked a crisis counseling line. So just a little bit of everything. I am married and have been married 28 years. I have 3 young adults, and I think that's pretty much everything about a lot about me.
Thank you so much. And can you tell us a little bit about, I know that you have, it sounds like an array of experience with mental health and behavioral health. Can you tell us a little bit about your faith walk or your spirituality side?
Absolutely. I am the daughter of a pastor, and so I have been in church all of my life. I accepted Christ when I was 6 years old. And I will be honest with you, much of my life, I spent watching my father in ministry. Not only my father, but my dad's father was also a pastor. My dad's brother was also a pastor. My mother's mom was an evangelist. And so it's what I know. I have observed ministry up close and personal. As a little girl, I found myself always wanting to be with my dad. And I would hear him, it's so interesting. I would hear him get up in the morning and I would hear his feet and I would jump up because I wanted to be with him. I didn't know where he was going. I didn't know what he was going to do for the day, but I just wanted to be with him. And oftentimes we would go to the hospital to visit the sick. We would go and be with a family that was bereaved. We would go to funeral homes. I remember cutting through the back of a funeral home, and I just remember grabbing onto my dad, walking through because I was a little bit scared of everything that I was seeing, but I just always wanted to go. I did not care. So in that observation, I learned a lot. I would sit, I was always waiting for him at church in a meeting, and then I would entertain myself oftentimes in the sanctuary. So if he had a meeting, I would be in the sanctuary, I'd have the microphone, and I would just be, pretending, just doing all singing, whatever it was. So my faith walk was, just watching my father as he served and the love he had for the people, I had for the people. It was just really interesting. I think that God was preparing me. I just didn't know it.
Understood, understood. And can you tell me how, as you've gotten in your career, you've decided to, as you've grown up and got into your career, how you've decided to marry the two, the pastoral call to service and also that mental health, mental wellness call to service.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So in 2003, I was graduating from my master's program. I already had one child. I had a son in 1998, but I had my twin girls in 2003. And when I had my twin girls, they were born at 27 and a half weeks gestation. They weighed 2.5 pounds apiece. And at 3 days old, they had strokes. This journey really changed my life because, as I told you, I grew up in church and I loved God and I served, but I don't think I was fully surrendered. I was, I had a form of godliness. I knew I needed to be in church, but there was a disconnect a little bit, even though I was teaching and doing all kinds of things. It wasn't until my twins were born that everything changed for me. And so when they had the strokes at 3 days old and I didn't know how I was going to make it, I was angry with God. I'm just going to be completely honest. I had done everything I thought that I needed to do. And I was angry, like, how could you let this happen? I didn't ask for twins. I never thought I would have twins. It just, so how do you do this? And then the doctors told me they would never walk or talk. And I thought, like, really? I don't get it. So during that stay, when they were in the NICU, I became very depressed. I did not want anyone to come up to the hospital. I was depressed. And so I remember God saying to me, and it was very clear in my spirit that, he asked me two questions. Who do you say I am, Kim? Who do you say? Not who your dad says I am, not who your mom, who do you say I am? And in that, it was like a quickening in my spirit. I said, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And then the second question he asked me was, is there anything too hard for me?
Wow.
That's what he asked me. And from that journey, we left that hospital, had to go to another hospital, had to go to another hospital. That was the journey. Like, I came to know Jesus for myself personally when my daughters were born. And so when you talk about how did you merge, how did this all come together? I don't know how to separate it.
Mm-hmm.
Because even when people come to me they're looking for a counselor, they come to me. Now, I will say most of my clients that come to me are looking for someone who values faith, right? So they're looking for, because, even as I'm listed as a Christian counselor. Not to say I do have some clients that are not Christian. Mm-hmm. But most of my clients are coming to me because they're looking for someone where their faith will matter. They don't want to go to a counselor that does not value prayer, that does not value or looks at them as if something's wrong when they say, well, I'm fasting or I'm believing for, or they don't want someone who's going to say, well, really, I don't know. They want someone who is going to understand what they're saying. So my testimony led me to this place of, like, I can't do life without him. My healing, my everything, my peace, my joy, all of that, impacts my mental health. And so that it's all fused together. And so, I hope I'm answering that, but that's how, I don't know, it's hard to separate that. And I would say that's how it all kind of came together. It started with just that journey with my daughters, and I've had to live that out, like to cling to when I felt like I couldn't make it, because that was the beginning of the journey. I mean, there were surgeries, there were seizures over the years. There was where I was having to cling to my faith in God.
And that's I'm glad that you made that point, because everybody's journey is different. I know that one of the amazing places that I work at, the title is journeys, because everybody's journey is different. And when you talk about that, your journey specifically, and then you also have individuals maybe who are coming in and it's very hard to see that journey ahead of them. How do you support them? In everybody's practice, everyone is a professional clinician, and everyone's practice is different. But how do you support people who come in and say, hey, I don't see any further space in my journey?
So, one of the things that I like to do with clients is encourage them to be present and in the moment. Okay. So one of the things I will share with clients is God has given us daily bread, right? We have daily bread. I don't have tomorrow's bread. I don't have next week, next year. Mm-hmm. I have today's brand new mercies this day. So I encourage clients to stay in the moment and to let's deal with right now, and that this is a moment in time. We talk about seasons, right? Like, if you're in the winter, one good thing is that winter does not stay all year. It changes. We enter different seasons. And I think that's important because it gives hope that no matter what's going on today, this too shall pass. It came to pass. And so there was a book a long time ago. The title that I saw was Don't Die in the Winter Because Your Season is Coming. And I think it's really important to encourage people to understand that, don't give up, because no matter what, this right now is just right now. And it can pass, but let's deal with right now.
Absolutely.
And that's what I encourage.
And I can appreciate your answer, Miss Lilly, because in so many elements, you are talking about some of the supports and treatments and interventions that we perform and provide to clients on a behavioral health level, but you're also doing it in a spiritual level as well. So when you look at the behavioral health side of things, how does that support those techniques, what you just said? Because your answer was real. Yes, we're just going to meet people where they are. We're going to address the here and the now, and we're going to go through it. So what is that in like mental health professional talk?
That's mindfulness practice.
Okay.
That's mindfulness practice. Now, what I love when I'm working with clients, I practice CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. I love it. Why? Because I believe that it deals with our thoughts and how our thoughts impact our feelings and how our feelings impact our actions. And so our behaviors. So I like it because it lines up with the word of God. As a man thinketh in his heart, or as a woman, so is he or she, right? So I like to deal with our thoughts. Usually, like I'll say to a client, well, the client may say, I just feel so sad. And I'll say, tell me about that. What's been on your mind? What have you been thinking about? What thoughts are you having? Because what I'm trying to do is connect their thoughts with their feelings. Absolutely. Or they may say, I've been isolating. I've just been home. I don't want to be around anybody. And I'll say, tell me, what are you feeling? And then we'll talk about, and I show them it's like a triangle. And so then you know, when you talk about being present and in the moment, let's deal with the here and now. We're talking about mindfulness practice, being present.
Yeah.
So many of us struggle with being present. We can't enjoy today because we're not present.
Yes.
And so it's really important, because I find when you have a lot of high levels of anxiety, a lot of times it's because you are worried about tomorrow, next week, next year. I'll never get married. I'm never going to have children. I'm never going to get that job. I'm never. So we're way in the future, right? But we need to come back and just deal with like today. This is today. And so I like to, those are probably the main ones I use. I would say CBT and mindfulness practice. I use that a lot.
Awesome. And then to piggyback off of that question, I was going to ask, how does that tie into that spirituality, that faith walk, that hope, that positive psychology? Well, all of those types of things that kind of lead you to do your work and merge it, sounds like effortlessly.
Yeah, it blends together so well, because then, you know, the clients that I have, like I said, most are Christians. We will, you know, we will pray together. We will there's sometimes a scripture that comes up, and we'll talk about that. And you know, it just merges, all of it just comes together. The being present, when I talk about, I'll talk to clients about daily bread, you know, and so when we talk about mindfulness, we talk about just daily bread, what we've been given for this day. You know, and then thinking about what we're thinking about. So when we talk about cognitive behavioral therapy, I'll talk to clients about, think on these things, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever, like, what are we thinking? The negative self-talk. Sometimes, like David said, we have to encourage ourselves in the Lord. So we'll talk about what are you saying to yourself? Sometimes we're waiting for someone else to encourage us or say things to us, you know. I talk to clients about what they can control and what they can't. We talk about boundaries. One of the things I find challenging is sometimes you'll have a Christian wife, right? And they're in a very difficult marriage that, you know, maybe, you know, within the, you know, that's maybe verbally, there's like some inappropriate verbally, there's disrespect, there's this. And I find that Christian wives struggle with, well, you know, what it means to be submissive and what it means, what's the difference? Well, you know, is it okay for me to set boundaries and all of those things? That to me is the hardest part with Christian wives, because there's so much, there's theology, or, you know, some people, you know, how they look at certain scripture, right?
Correct. Yes.
What does submission mean? What does, you know, what does that look like? And I find that hard sometimes. And then we have to spend time talking about what their understanding of scripture is, because that's another thing. Well, how I understand something, sometimes clients may look at it, depending on their background, depending on what denomination they grew up in, or all of that can kind of shift with the way they perceive what's okay and what's not okay. So exploring all of that is really important in sessions as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Lilly. I have one last question for you, and I also want to know the name of your business and if you are accepting new clients. But the first question is, how do you think that mental health and theology and the two communities can come together and then work to this common goal that we seem to just be indirectly working toward?
I think like what you're doing right now, that's definitely something that's so important. As I was talking to a young client, and the client said, you know, our generation is the podcast generation. We like listening and hearing stories and struggles and things like that. I think it's important for the church and the mental health community to come together. Churches can have people come in to do workshops, to talk, to share. Churches can be, I think it's really important for us in churches not to, you know, when someone says they're feeling down or depressed, to, you know, prayer is wonderful, but also, you know, we have to also educate that there are, you know, we're talking about the brain. We're talking about a physical part of our body too. So I think sometimes I believe people have been shamed in church to believe that if they have, you know, if they are struggling with depressive symptoms or anxiety or anything else, that it's a negative, there's that negative stigma, right? But I think that we have to start being honest about things.
Yeah.
And the truth is, all of us, no one is exempt. I don't think you can say, ask anyone, do you know anything about anxiety? And I don't think anyone would say, well, I don't know what that is. I mean, all of us at some point struggle with anxiety.
Absolutely.
We have depressive symptoms sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's how we deal with it. How do we
Yes.
deal with it? And so we have to come together. We have to work together and provide, educate, bring in, you know, some people don't know what anxiety, you know, many times I'm working with clients and if I just ask the question, are you anxious? They might say no. But if I say, are you, you know, having thoughts where you can't turn your thoughts off, or you are, you know, you have a lot of what ifs, or do you feel like you're worried about this, or you can't
Chest
stop
palpitations.
right, chest, physical, right, all of these that then they're like, oh yeah, I am having that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can't sleep at night because I can't turn my brain off. Oh yeah, because, you know, so I think
And we've made it so normal to endure.
that's exactly right. And then one thing that I think is really important, especially in the Black community, you know, we have, because of the trauma of our history,
Yes.
our ancestors, you know, we don't talk a lot about epigenetics and how trauma has been passed. It's been passed down, and how we've never been given permission to, you know, self-care. What is that?
Right.
You know, or being,
Exactly.
you know, intentional. We didn't have permission to say, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm going to rest. No, I'm not. We didn't have that. So helping our community find their voice is critical. And
encouraging that you're being listened to, you know,
yeah,
because we have a lot of times we've had voices for all these years, but it's whether we're being listened to.
that's
And
right.
that is the huge factor, is to say, hey, we're creating space now for you to be heard.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what we've got to do. And I think I think as you keep doing what you're doing and we continue to help people, you know, in church, I think the church has to be talking about mental health and bringing it together with the community and mental health, utilizing our mental health folks that are in the church too, that are right there, that can say, hey, I'm here, and providing resources, helping direct people to, you know, where do I find this? And, you know, and having real conversations.
That part. Yep.
That's what I think. Oh,
awesome.
And I know you asked me, where am I? My practice is, the name of my practice is Mannafull Counseling and Consulting. It is, I can give you, I guess, my number for it, but you can find me on Psychology Today.
Yes.
You can find me there, Kimberly Lilly, and I am accepting clients. So feel free to look on psychologytoday.com. You will find me there and reach out. And I do accept insurance, and And I also work with people on a sliding scale fee as well. I just don't believe that anyone should be turned away if they need counseling.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
yeah.
No, that's good to know. That's definitely good to know because I'm sure we could talk another 30 minutes about all of the the barriers to access to care. So thank you so much for adding that. Miss Lilly, thank you so much for joining us today. You have touched upon a lot of intricate things that hopefully we will be able to invite you and Pastor Reverend Brown back to have another episode where we can definitely dive further in and just begin to break some of these silos and continue to further this journey. So thank you so much, Miss Lilly. And until next time, guys, take care of yourselves so that we can all take care of each other. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Just Me Therapy podcast. If you are seeking further one-on-one diagnoses, interventions, and treatment plans, please consider scheduling an appointment with an individual counselor at Journeys Counseling Center, located in Greensboro, North Carolina. Journeys can be reached at 336-294-1349. The mission of Just Me Therapy podcast is to use authentic conversations to uplift one's mind, body, and soul. The goal of Just Me Therapy is to offer affordable education and insight to individuals who experience financial barriers to accessing individualized behavioral health care services. With that being said, the information, including opinions, advice, and recommendations discussed in this podcast, are intended for individual, informational, and educational purposes only. Such information is not intended to substitute the recommendations of your own licensed therapist or healthcare professional. Although we are licensed behavioral health professionals, we are not your licensed behavioral health professional. As a result, the advice mentioned on this podcast should not replace the recommendations offered by your own qualified health professional.